Now let's find the domain and range of this absolute value function. Before we do that, let's remind ourselves what the graph of y equals the absolute value of x looks like. So this is simply a v, like this. So the function that we have is a transformation of y equals the absolute value of x. X minus 4 is a horizontal shift 4 to the right. Then 2 multiplied by the absolute value of x minus 4 gives us a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. And then at the end, plus 8 vertically shifts the graph up by 8. So we know that the domain of the absolute value function is all real numbers. We can plug any number into the absolute value of x. But if all we're doing is shifting and stretching the graph of the absolute value of x, then we haven't changed the domain. The domain is still all real numbers after that shifting and stretching. And we know that for the absolute value of x, the range is 0 to infinity. But all we've done with this new function is shift up 8. It's still opening up, but it's shifted up 8. So that means that the range is 8 to infinity. Let's take a moment to look at the graph of this function. Here's what it looks like. It's a little bit more vertically stretched than the absolute value of x. It's shifted 4 to the right and 8 up. Now let's look at this square root function. So again, let's start with y equals the square root of x. What does that look like? Well, we know that when we plug 0 in, we get 0. When we plug 4 in, we get 2. When we plug 9 in, we get 3. So if we plot those points, we get a graph that looks like this. I'm going to do that again. Graph that looks like this. So the function that we have is a square root function whose graph has been shifted 3 to the left and 2 down. So if we think about the domain and range of the square root function, we know that we cannot plug negative numbers into the square root of x. So the domain is 0 to infinity, and the range is also 0 to infinity, because if we plug 0 into the square root function, we get 0, and as we plug larger numbers into the square root function, we get larger numbers. So if what we've done to get this new function is shift 3 to the left and 2 down, then that means that the domain is going to be shifted 3 to the left, which gives us negative 3 to infinity. And the range is going to be what we get after we shift 2 down, so negative 2 to infinity.